Hello and welcome to The Next Level, a video series featuring information you can use to advance your professional goals. Today's video is an industry spotlight. We're going to be talking with Raymond Bleed, CEO of Legal Complex. And our topic today is about contracts, which, trust me, is of interest to anybody, whether you're in the legal field or not, or whether you know about contracts or not. Contracts affect all of us. So I'm very excited to have Raymond here with us. Raymond, can you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and what is Legal Complex and Legal Pioneer, which we're going to be talking about too.
Well, thanks, Ari. Thanks for having me. Who am I? Well, I was born in Suriname, born and raised actually in Suriname, which is a small country in South America. I started studying law there, and then I went to I came to the Netherlands, and then I finished. I got my law degree here in the Netherlands. I have a degree in intellectual property law, and I have a specialty in legal knowledge engineering. So after I graduated, I did the most logical thing. I tried out as a lawyer. I wasn't that happy, but I stuck with the legal industry, and I've been building legal tech solutions ever since. That's where I came from. Oh, by the way, I started Legal Complex a couple of years ago as a side project while I was still employed, and I started out experimenting with new concepts. And one of the concepts that really took off and became a success was Legal Pioneer, which started as a global community of like-minded people. But then it quickly evolved into a data set, which we now are using to glean information and insights and provide those to the community as well.
That's amazing that you took something that was a side project and made it your full-time job, and now it's your business. So I'd love to jump right in. Can you show us Legal Pioneer so we can share that with our audience right now?
Sure. Let me just quickly share my screen. I have a graphic up here, which is one of the queries that we've been doing or preparing, but I'll quickly switch over to the website and just give you a little tour. So this is the homepage. This is the Legal Pioneer map. So what we're going to try and do, this is on legalcomplex.com right now. What we're showing here is just the data and not the companies themselves. Eventually, we have another website called legalpioneer.org, which is our nonprofit division. And we're going to start displaying the profiles or the company profiles on that website. And this will just be purely for data purposes. So this is the Legal Pioneer map. As it now stands, we have 8,700 companies, but these are the companies that have been founded as of 2010. In the back end, we have a data set that is over 11,000, which also include companies that have been started before 2010, and also include companies that are communities and projects that we have gathered in, but don't have a unique URL or are still in the project phase. Here, what you see mostly is the global spread of companies. You see how much is raised in total, 156 billion. And if you click, for instance, here on Legal Tech, you see how much capital has been raised by the companies we have classified as Legal Tech. Just to take a few steps back and provide some context to the listener, there is much debate in the legal industry about what is legal technology. Mm-hmm. The way we look at it is that you have technology that revolves around lawyers, and you have technology that revolves around the law. So the quick division that you can make is the technology that lawyers use is legal tech, and the technology that helps you comply with the law is what also in general terms is called regulatory technology, or RegTech for short. And we make a division, and maybe it's handy if I just switch to a quick graph that I have on my website to illustrate this point. So, and I hope it's, so here's the breakdown. So you have legal, that has legal tech as a market, and what it does is it does legal work. Law is typically what we see as marketplaces to help lawyers find or to find legal work in general. Then you have the other category, the big one, which is called RegTech, and that is divided up in risk tech, fintech, wealth tech, tax, and civic tech. This list is not a limited list. There are some overlaps, and there is also some more categories that we can add, but these are the biggest buckets we have. And risk tech is to help citizens and companies to avoid legal issues. Fintech is to help the financial industry comply with regulation. Same for wealth tech. Tax is obvious. And then you have civic tech, and civic tech is more the technology that influences the law, like voting, petition, but also platforms that help you report crimes, abuse, and harassment. So whenever you see a little button on a website that report abuse, in that sense, you're actually making a legal action, signifying something to report as a potential, I wouldn't say crime, but that would be too much, but an issue, a legal issue.
So I really like this, and let me give a couple of reasons and why I think it's really relevant to our audience. First of all, I have many people in the legal profession in my network. One of my first mentors and my first boss actually was an attorney. So I've always worked with attorneys. I have 20 years of experience in managing contracts as a non-attorney. So this, of course, is of interest to me because this was a big part of my career, being involved with the legal community. More importantly for our audience is if you're wondering what all the big sectors are within the legal industry and how the law affects us and what the marketplaces are for different parts of legal technology, this is the perfect breakdown. And I like this because it's very simple and very clearly communicates that breakdown. So I would encourage our listeners to visit Legal Pioneer because just by jumping in and looking at information like this and all the charts and graphs that you have, they can start to get some insights into this industry. Many people think about law as a career they might want to be involved in, or they might think, what other areas are there that I can get involved in? And I, for example, know many people who have gone from practicing private practice law into civic tech and other domains where they're in a nonprofit or working for a different part of the legal sector. So I love this. I wish more industries had something like this to help people who would say, well, I hear the name of your industry, but I don't understand what it all involves. So I like this a lot. If it's okay, if I can ask you as a next question, one of the areas, as I mentioned, that I've specialized in over the years is contract.
Yeah.
What's the contract space like? You know, where do I find contracts here, and who are some of the players in the contract space? Is there a lot of innovation going on in contracts?
Well, actually, come to think of it, I can visualize that. If we go back here to the map, and I hope it comes up. So on the Legal Pioneer map, we have a little tab called contracts over here. So if I click through, it will only select those companies that in some way or form dabble in contracts, either manage it or draft or review or some type. And as you can see here in the chart below, it was fairly quiet up until 2014 when we got a little bump. And then it started growing in 2018 and it now is slowly tapering off again. So that's hopefully one answer to your question. We have over 994 here with over 5 million in capital invested.
So that's really significant because that represents more than, you showed us 8,700 companies overall being tracked by Legal Pioneer. And that means more than 10% of them are involved in some way, shape, or form in contracts. So this is something that I know and that you know, but maybe our audience doesn't know, is that there's a huge amount of innovation happening with contracts. So this is an area that's really hot. And the investment shown here is $5.3 billion just in contract technology. So this would be of interest to many people who know me, who are in procurement, who are contract managers, who are data and information managers, who do data governance. I mean, this is a tremendous amount of innovation, it looks like to me.
Yeah. So we can go a step deeper and see, okay, listen, we want to see just the ones that have raised money or have seed capital. And we want to see, for instance, in the United Kingdom, how many are there? So you can click here on United Kingdom, and then we have here, just zoom in. There's the spread. We have 26 in total, with a combined capital raised of 211 million.
Right.
But here's the thing. As I mentioned before, these are just the companies as of 2010. I have another small chart over here on the ambition page. So here you see a little graph, and this goes into the question, how do we identify which companies are dabbling or entering into the contract space? So here you see a larger number. Here you see 1,072. And that's also because we include the companies that have been founded before 2010 in this list. Right. And you see here, just in the legal tech space, we have 800 plus. The ones that have or claim to have AI are 190. Here's the latest one that we added. And here is the number for blockchain. I have another chart that I wanted to share, and I just generated this one this morning. And you see here a slightly different number in terms of the total amount, because again, these are also more mature companies that we've included and that also have more capital. But here you see the breakup. So in regulatory technology, you have 1.9 billion. And in legal, and that's legal as in legal tech and also as in marketplaces, we have 4.3 billion. You can go a little bit, segment it a little bit more. You'll see here that the majority of legal is actually legal tech, or actually it's almost all of it. And we also have a bit of fintech, risk tech, and smart tech. And we can, for instance, for each of these segments, we can delve into the data and see what are the companies that have then been tagged as, okay, they do contracts and are in the fintech space. Mostly those are in the investment area. Right. Especially in the trading, investment trading area, but it also could be in credit space. So here we have another graph. This graph, what this actually shows is we have a way of automatically generating tags and identifying what types of companies there are. Now we're still extending this list, but we have already gathered some big trends, or let's say big industry markets like privacy, security, what people call AI. These are also in this chart, so they already been generated. The tags. But basically what I was trying to explain here is that contracts is one label that we identify in the company's profile, but there are also other labels that we can attach to, and all those labels are dynamically attached to those profiles based on preferences or based on the information that is in those profiles. For instance, you can see here that we also have companies in the accounting space, but also doing contracts. So that's this little sliver over here. So that's the general way of how we can slice up the data and try and get more insights.
This is a great breakdown. And what it helps me understand is that it helps express something that I've always said, which is that there are many facets to this domain. There are many facets to agreements, many facets to contracts. And for example, at a very simple level, there are legal terms and there are business terms. what you're highlighting here is that there are different companies are focusing on different areas of innovation around contracts. So I've heard a lot about innovation in the contract space. I think in particular, the companies that are doing AI are getting a lot of press, but according to your graph, they represent just a relatively small percentage of startups and of legal tech innovators. Is there in fact growth in the contract space, in contract innovation and investment in contract technology?
There are two metrics to answer that question. If you say growth in new companies getting founded, the answer is no. If you say new funding or capital coming into the space and companies getting funded, the answer is yes. If you measure, for instance, what legal technology companies usually in the past have struggled with is to get seed investment. If you're a mature company that has a proven business model and already a existing customer base, it was easy for you to get a Series A or later stage funding. But getting seed capital was really a struggle. Now we're seeing that it's easier to get seed capital, it's easier to get pre-seed capital. And the other interesting thing that we've seen is that the amount of seed capital has been growing steadily. So now we're above the 1 million threshold as a seed capital investment. And seed capital meaning your first investment in your company from a venture capitalist.
Yes.
So in terms of looking at the money side of things, yes, it's growing. But if you look at the company and the innovation and the growth in terms of how many new ventures get created and how many new people and participants we're getting in, not that it has been growing up until 2017, but we've been seeing a little bit of a downturn. But there's something else. There's a third dimension to this, and that is that you also see new entrants coming into the space. So, for instance, you see Google doing documents, what's called documents intelligence, and they're bringing in also new document management companies to help them use their technology and their AI on documents, and usually those documents are contracts. Apple, a couple of years back, had introduced e-signatures in their note-taking app. So, and lately we also heard that, for instance, Amazon has been offering legal advice to companies that are on their platform, intellectual property advice. It's not contracts, but how it has been happening is and also one of the great boost or growth drivers in the contract space has been Salesforce. Not Salesforce as a contract provider themselves, but all of the applications that are on the Salesforce platform have been adding contract management capabilities on top of them. And you've also been seeing that in the acquisition space. So yes, the exciting thing is there's more money coming in, and acquisition and consolidation space is also more fluid at the moment, but it's harder to find the good companies.
Right.
From where I'm sitting, from what I'm looking at.
One way I would interpret some of what you said is that the startup ecosystem around contracts has gained enough traction to get the attention of bigger players. Is that a fair interpretation?
So I wrote an article about this to also try and understand why is contracts now being so popular.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is seen as one of the fundamentals in your finances. And not only your finances as a business, but also your finances as a person. So if you just look at how many subscriptions you have, how many bills you have to pay, those are all based on contracts. Companies have those same issues. If you look at, if you were to make a donut chart of a company, you'll see three big segments. One is they have their employee contracts, they have their vendor contracts, and then they have their employee contracts. Their sales contracts. So
yes.
And those three big pillars make up the money for the company. And if you look at your personal situation, everybody has Spotify, Netflix, and those streaming services are going to get more over time.
Yes.
You also have your insurance and all your other bills that are on a regular basis. All of those things are based on contracts. So if you want to switch them or get some insights on them, and that's the personal finance space, by the way. So the
Right.
accounting space is also getting into, hey, if you want to find out how people are doing financially, basically, it is we need to first look at get the information out of the contracts and get a good overview of where you stand financially.
Yes. I think you've reinforced a point I made earlier, which is that contracts affect all of us. We live in a world that is governed by contracts, especially around content. All the content we consume, which of course is a big part of my business, helping create content for businesses, but all that content we consume is governed by intellectual property agreements, is governed by terms and conditions. And yes, it's increasingly, I think, part of anybody's expenses, their day-to-day expenses. We need these products and services in our lives in order to stay connected, in order to get the information we need to do our jobs. So we're increasingly subject to these agreements.
Sure.
So what else do you want to show us? I notice you're pulling up some information about players. This is of interest. Can you talk about this?
Yeah, so we were just talking about the two big areas for contracts, which is the personal finances space, and then you have the professional finances space. So
Yeah.
from the professional finances space, I had made just to understand for myself how what technologies are being used or in the market right now that are influencing the contract space in general. So we'll just zoom into what we see as the document, the contract itself. We won't take into account the negotiation part yet. We won't take into account the dispute part when payment is not, or there's a dispute about the clause or whatever. We just look at the document. So there are 3 or 4 big, how would I say this, technology hooks that are coming into contracts. One is the text part. So whenever you want to take out the names out of the contracts, and we found about 35 companies in that space just focused on that part or have that capability as well. And we also tallied up their total capitalization, and we saw that was about 223 million. We did this chart at the beginning of 2018, so it's I need to do a new one, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the names part. Then we go over and you see the dates and amounts. So those are the numbers. First we have the text and then we have the numbers. And there are more players in that space because in the numbers space, we also have data analytics for instance, for your website and for the finance industry in general.
Yes.
But those technologies can also easily be ported towards getting those amounts and dates out of contracts. That's where we see a lot more investment. So if somebody came to me and say, listen, which is a big area to delve into, I would say, stay away from the data part, do something else, because there are a lot more companies and there's a lot more capital invested in that area.
So that's a more crowded market, I'd say.
That's a better term to, yeah. And if you look at, for instance, the clauses themselves, identifying which clauses are risky or are you missing signatures from people, we have found 98 companies, but also a lot of money invested, or they have accumulated a lot of capital. And at the top end of the contract space, we see entity and structure, ownership and conflicts. And those things are more about when we talk about doing due diligence on a merger, or when you're talking about knowing your customer and checking for fraud and identity. There are new companies coming in from a security perspective to also get that information out. So not just the name, but also the person and the details behind it, or the company and the details behind it, and also the company structures behind them. And the other thing is also to get, especially for mergers, is to verify and do the due diligence on ownership and licensing of the company's property. So in this chart, you'll see how many companies and how much money. And this may be a way of identifying, okay, which area are interesting for us as a company to look at. And also from other perspective is what is already out there that we can use and leverage to get a better oversight on our own company insights on our company finances and contracts.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you're going to be updating this chart, but let's jump ahead, and it would be great to see an update for 2019. I think in particular, what excites me about looking at data like this is if I can see a snapshot of how things were in 2018 and then see a snapshot of how things were at the end of 2019, it's interesting to see where there's growth, where there's investment, where there's divestment. Because that might suggest to me, what area I might want to go into or where I might want to look for a job or where I might see an opportunity to do business. So I love seeing those sorts of snapshots.
So I haven't done I did in the past do a comparison of the legal industry in general, but not just the contract space, and comparing 2018 and 2019, or perhaps also 2017. Good idea. You know what? Right after this show, I'll generate one. What I did generate, because I was interested in that particular part, was first.
I see the location chart. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking at how much is invested in the continents. You see, most of it is in North America, but also I was looking at saturation. So where do you see most of the money going in?
Oh, interesting. See, that's fascinating. So contracts floats right to the top.
Yeah, so contracts, pure contract players, those are a lot. Next comes blockchain. Then you have the e-sign companies coming up. Mm-hmm. Interesting thing is that intellectual property is also a fairly well-capitalized area. And the funny thing is that the highest seat we recorded for a contract company this year was one that did content licensing.
Oh, how about that? And again, that increasingly affects all of us.
Exactly.
Right? What I get to see on my TV, what I get to see on my, on my devices, the content that I have access to through my company. This matters a great deal to just about anybody in today's economy.
So, and I have a little bit more of a surprise. So you see also here GRC, which is governance, risk, and compliance in general. Mm-hmm. Data analytics is the one that I showed you in the previous chart, where you have the text part and you have the data part. Well,
yes, exactly. That extraction, yeah.
And these are just the numbers from 2000. No, these are actually the numbers in general of the entire database. They're not just limited to 2019. But what I do have, because this is saturation, and what we're currently working on, so this is still hush top secret in the back end. So this is the live version, and that is same chart. But if I open up this one, see here opportunities. So you see here credit. And the reason why credit here is an opportunity and not a saturated market is that you just have 7 companies in there. But one of them, or maybe all of them, have combined for a 107 million in capitalization. Right. This means that there is just one company eating at all of that sector with little or no competition. And so you also have that in, for instance, real estate. You don't have that, or we don't have that many. Insurance, investment, healthcare, personal finances, I mentioned before. Construction is also an interesting avenue. Construction is a contract-heavy industry.
Very much so. Because there are a lot of different, you have to bring in a lot of different people from a lot of different disciplines to cooperate on a construction project. Yeah. So there are a lot of different trades, a lot of different companies.
Exactly. So we only have, I see one, and that one that we have has 8.2 million in capital already raised. I know from experience that there are a lot of contract platforms that help contracts manage their projects, and they also include prospecting, and they also include some document management. But then not many have contracts in them per se to help the customer with managing that part of the
Right.
operation. And we have tags. But the cool thing about this is still a static algorithm. So all of the other ones are dynamic. So even if I change something in the backend, it will automatically update. This is still a static one, but I figured out how to make it dynamic. So I can be alerted on new opportunities moving forward based on if there's new data coming in, then we can see, hey, is there a new opportunity opening up? Is there a new space where there's a company that has a lot of capital and little or no competition, or there are not that many in that field? Or is there a field where there is zero competition, what we call green pasture? And that's the latest feature that we're working on, which we call Spark. But again, that's still in the works. We're not there. We're not ready yet. But I would encourage listeners, if they want to have like a test or check it out, just connect with me on LinkedIn or email me and see what I can do.
Absolutely. So that's a great way to remind everyone that, you know, Raymond is my featured guest today. I'm going to put a link to his, I'm going to tag him and put a link to his LinkedIn profile in the notes to this video so that you can, so look below or up there. And I encourage you to connect with Raymond. As you can see, Raymond and Legal Pioneer have compiled a tremendous amount of detailed data that can really give you insights into all the different moving parts of what is a really big industry that affects all of us, and that's the contract space. So Raymond, let's close with anything you see, any trends or just any personal feelings about 2020. Are you excited about it? Not so excited about it? Anything we should know? What would you like to share with us about next year since it's upon us?
So let's just begin with, I can't predict the future. I'm just using data from the past to see what might happen in the future. So I have hopes and dreams. One of them is I hope that because there is so much capital coming into the space, and I think there will be more capital available. We have, and I have a chart somewhere on my site, where you can see that we have over 2,000 unique investors only for this year that have invested in legal tech companies. So all that capital, all that cash will hopefully attract entrepreneurs and outsiders, and also the incumbents and the people in this that are passionate about this industry to give it another shot, like you, because there's going to be there are more opportunities. The other end is that we also see that big players are coming in with their technology. So, for instance, if Google uses their AI and all the other companies like Amazon or so coming in, that will make it a little bit difficult maybe for the traditional legal tech players and the e-discovery, for instance, participants. Mm-hmm. But if I look at the broader trends of the coming year, let's just say contracts will be more, it will start evolving more to not just looking at contracts, but more looking at your financial situation, looking at it more from a not a, how do you call it, the global perspective, but more in context.
Yeah.
And how it affects all the other areas in your business and in your personal life. And the other thing that I'm hopeful for is, or I think that might happen is we're going to see a couple of failures, but also successes, and we're seeing those as well. So I'm hopeful that there will be more successes than failures to report in the future. But also giving people new, fresh ideas about things they can do. So in general, it is a positive message that I want to say or want to communicate. But we're not there yet. I still see struggles ahead.
This has been really illuminating. Let's end with the question of surprises. Has anything surprised you in the past year, or you know, this is, to me, this is hugely illuminating, right? It really helps me articulate in real terms what I'm seeing and hearing from people in my network and for people who are still involved in this industry whom I work with, about just how much investment is taking place in the contract space and more broadly in the legal space. But are there any statistics that surprised you?
The most recent one, my last article, I just double checked how many links are still active in my database, and I was afraid that over half would be would vanish. Well, good news there. Over 1,000 in my database seem to have vanished. However, I've noticed that a couple have come back. Not that they have risen back from the dead, but just that their server started responding and coming back with a message. But if you look at the number of how many companies we might have lost, as opposed to how many new companies get created, we're still what is called net positive. And that's the statistic that I was happy to hear, because one of the reasons why I quit my job and started this whole endeavor was I was on a mission to power world peace. And the reason the way I thought I could power world peace or contribute to world peace was giving legal tech companies better data to survive. And one of those data points was, yes, we have more capital, so come and create your company in the legal tech industry. It's one of the most stable industries out there. It's the only industry that can legitimately prevent itself from being disrupted, as we have seen in France and in Germany.
Right.
Lawyers can outlaw their own demise. So it's a stable investment. And so that was the most surprising thing for me in the last year. But there are more surprises coming early next year. I'm going to do a full review of all the numbers out there from 2019 and probably compare them to 2018 and really see how we are, what our status is at the moment.
I'm looking forward to that. And I hope this encourages anyone watching to really take a close look at this industry. Here's your opportunity to do that. Connect with Raymond, visit Legal Pioneer and legalcomplex.com, and you can start finding some eye-opening information about this very dynamic industry. And I'm delighted to hear what you just told us, Raymond, that for the most part, we're still at a net positive in terms of investment and in terms of excitement and energy with all the innovation that's taking place. And this is going to result in real benefits to all of us on a day-to-day basis when it becomes easier and cheaper for companies to administer their contracts and to understand the information that's in them. Hopefully that will lead to lower costs and can make all of our lives better. So I'll leave on that note. Any closing words?
Oh, no, I'm just happy that Christmas is almost there. So I hope the year will end well. I'm sure the year will end well, and I cannot wait to get all the data in and generate some beautiful visualization. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for being part of my industry spotlight on the legal industry. I hope to do this again and maybe dive into another area that you're researching. So thank you, Raymond, and thanks everyone. Keep watching. Stay tuned for another video in this series.